Beneath the surface of your stomach, something far more serious than appearance is happening, and almost no one explains it clearly. The fat that sits deep inside your abdomen is not the same fat you can pinch or see in the mirror. This fat wraps itself around your organs. It presses on your liver. It interferes with your heart. It disrupts hormones silently every single day. This is visceral fat, and it is one of the strongest predictors of diabetes, heart disease, fatty liver, and early aging. What makes it even more dangerous is that many people with a flat-looking belly still carry a high amount of it, while others work hard in the gym and see no change at all. The real problem is not effort. The real problem is strategy. Most people are attacking visceral fat with the wrong tools: endless cardio, extreme calorie cutting, random ab exercises. All of these can actually make visceral fat harder to lose by triggering stress hormones and slowing metabolism. In this video, you will learn why visceral fat behaves differently from normal body fat, why your body protects it so aggressively, and why willpower alone is never enough to get rid of it. You will learn how hormones like insulin and cortisol decide whether this fat stays or leaves, and why small daily signals matter more than intense workouts. Most importantly, you will learn about one science-backed system that targets visceral fat directly and starts changing it within 30 days, not through punishment, but through biological alignment. This is not a magic trick, and it is not a supplement promise. It is a method based on how the body actually works when it feels safe enough to release stored fat. Along the way, you will also discover lesser-known signs that visceral fat is decreasing, signs most people ignore because they expect visible abs first, and you will understand why the first changes happen internally before they show up on the outside. If you stay until the end, you will know exactly what mistakes to avoid, why late-night habits are more damaging than most foods, and how a few simple adjustments can shift your body from storage mode into release mode. This knowledge can change how you approach fat loss forever, because once visceral fat starts melting, everything else becomes easier. Energy improves. Cravings drop. Waist size follows. This video is not about motivation. It is about clarity. It is about understanding the signals your body listens to and learning how to send the right ones consistently. By the end, you will see visceral fat not as a personal failure, but as a biological response that can be reversed. Welcome to our channel, where we break down complex health topics into simple, practical truths that actually work. If you care about your health, your energy, and your future, make sure to subscribe now so you don't miss what comes next, because this is just the beginning. Visceral fat is not the soft layer that sits just under the skin. It is not the fat that jiggles when you move, or the fat you can grab with your fingers. Visceral fat lies deeper. It hides inside the abdominal cavity and wraps itself tightly around vital organs like the liver, pancreas, intestines, and kidneys. Because it is out of sight, many people do not even realize it is there. A person can look slim, wear a small waist size, and still carry dangerous levels of visceral fat. This fat behaves very differently from visible fat. It is active. It releases chemicals directly into the bloodstream. It sends signals to the liver. It interferes with how the body handles sugar and fat. This is why doctors worry more about visceral fat than the fat you can see. When visceral fat builds up, it increases the risk of insulin resistance, which means blood sugar stays high for longer periods. Over time, this can lead to type 2 diabetes. It also raises harmful cholesterol levels and promotes inflammation inside blood vessels, increasing the risk of heart attacks and strokes. Hormones are affected as well. Visceral fat produces substances that disrupt normal hormone balance, making it easier to store more fat and harder to burn it. This creates a cycle where the body slowly moves further away from health without obvious warning signs. The danger of visceral fat is not how it looks, but how it behaves. It acts like a factory, that constantly sends harmful messages throughout the body. This is where most people get confused and frustrated. They assume that fat is fat and that losing it is simply a matter of burning more calories than they eat. So they do what they have always been told to do. They start doing hundreds of crunches, hoping to flatten their stomach. But crunches only strengthen muscles under the fat. They do not tell the body to release visceral fat. The fat remains protected and unchanged. Then they add cardio. Long runs, hours on the treadmill. While movement is healthy, cardio alone often fails to target visceral fat. In some cases, excessive cardio raises stress hormones, especially cortisol, which actually encourages the body to store more visceral fat as a protective response. Then comes dieting. Calories are cut aggressively. Meals are skipped. Hunger becomes constant. At first, the scale might move, but soon everything slows down. The body senses scarcity. Metabolism adapts. Muscle is broken down for energy. Hormones shift towards storage. Visceral fat becomes even more guarded. Stress adds another layer to the problem. Mental stress, poor sleep, financial pressure, emotional strain all signal danger to the brain. The body responds by holding on to energy reserves. Visceral fat increases because biologically it is the fastest access fuel during perceived emergencies. This is why people who feel constantly stressed often gain belly fat even when they eat less. It is not a lack of discipline. It is the body responding exactly as it was designed to. The real reason visceral fat exists has nothing to do with laziness or weak willpower. It exists because the human body evolved to survive uncertainty. Thousands of years ago, food was not guaranteed. Danger was real, stress was physical. In those conditions, storing energy close to vital organs made sense. Visceral fat could be released quickly to fuel the body during illness, injury, or famine. Hormones were the messengers that controlled this system. Insulin determined whether energy was stored or used. Cortisol decided whether the environment was safe or threatening. When insulin stayed high, the body stored fat. When cortisol stayed high, the body protected fat. Visceral fat became a safety buffer. In the modern world, the threats are different, but the biology is the same. Frequent sugar intake keeps insulin elevated. Constant stress keeps cortisol elevated. The body interprets this combination as ongoing danger. As a result, visceral fat is not only stored, it is defended. This is why it is often the last fat to disappear and the first to return. The body believes it is essential for survival. Understanding this changes everything. Fat loss stops being a battle of motivation and becomes a process of sending the right biological signals. Once this shift happens, the idea of a 30-day fat melting mechanism starts to make sense. This is not about tricks or shortcuts. It is about creating an internal environment where visceral fat no longer feels necessary. The core system works because it addresses the exact signals that control fat storage. Insulin control is the first pillar. When insulin levels are managed properly, the body can finally access stored fat. This does not mean cutting food to extremes. It means stabilizing blood sugar so insulin rises and falls naturally instead of staying elevated all day. When insulin remains low for longer periods, visceral fat becomes available as fuel. The second pillar is stress reduction. Lowering cortisol tells the body that it is safe. Safety is the signal that allows fat release. This does not require eliminating stress completely, which is impossible. It requires reducing chronic stress through better sleep, breathing patterns, and daily structure. Even small improvements can shift hormonal balance. The third pillar is muscle activation. Muscle tissue acts like a sink for glucose. When muscles are activated regularly, they pull sugar out of the bloodstream without needing as much insulin. This directly reduces fat storage signals. Short, consistent resistance movements are often more effective than long cardio sessions for this reason. The fourth pillar is inflammation reduction. Chronic inflammation keeps the body in a defensive state. Highly processed foods, poor sleep, and inactivity all contribute to inflammation. When inflammation decreases, hormonal communication improves and fat loss pathways open more easily. These four elements work together, not separately. Insulin control without stress reduction still fails because cortisol can override insulin signals. Stress reduction without muscle activation limits glucose control. Muscle activation without inflammation reduction slows recovery and progress. When all four are aligned, the body receives a clear message. Energy is available, the environment is stable, survival reserves are no longer needed. Visceral fat responds quickly to this message because it is metabolically active. It releases faster than stubborn surface fat once the conditions are right. This is why noticeable internal changes can happen within weeks. Waist measurements start to shift. The belly feels less firm and pressured. Digestion improves. Energy becomes more stable throughout the day. These changes are not random. They are signs that the body has switched modes, from protection to release, from storage to balance. This process feels almost inevitable once the correct signals are in place. Not because of force, but because biology is finally working with you instead of against you. Daily habits are where visceral fat loss quietly succeeds or completely collapses, because this type of fat responds more to repeated signals than to occasional effort. The timing of when food is eaten matters more than most people expect, not because of calories alone, but because the body follows a daily rhythm. When eating is spread across the entire day and late into the night, insulin stays elevated for too long. Visceral fat thrives in that environment. A shorter eating window allows insulin to rise when food is consumed and fall when it is not, creating clear periods where the body can access stored fat. This does not require extreme fasting or skipping meals randomly. It simply means eating within a consistent window that aligns with daylight and activity. When this becomes routine, the body starts anticipating fuel and using stored energy more efficiently. Within that window, the order of food also matters. Protein-first meals send a powerful signal. Protein slows digestion, stabilizes blood sugar, and reduces the insulin spike that drives fat storage. It also protects muscle, which is critical for metabolic health. Starting meals with protein reduces cravings later in the day and lowers the chance of overeating without conscious restriction. This single habit often changes how the body handles food within days, not weeks. Movement after meals is another underestimated signal. Walking gently after eating helps muscles absorb glucose directly from the bloodstream. This lowers the amount of insulin needed and reduces the chance that excess energy gets pushed into visceral fat storage. This is not intense exercise. It is calm, consistent movement that tells the body energy is being used immediately. Over time, this habit improves insulin sensitivity, which is one of the most important factors in reducing visceral fat. Short resistance training plays a different but equally important role. Activating muscles through brief, focused sessions increases the body's ability to handle carbohydrates and fat throughout the entire day. Muscle tissue is metabolically active and continues to use energy even at rest. This shifts the body toward fat burning rather than fat storing. Long workouts are not required. Consistency matters more than duration. Deep sleep ties everything together. Sleep is when hormones reset. Poor sleep raises cortisol and disrupts insulin, creating the perfect conditions for visceral fat to grow. Deep, uninterrupted sleep lowers stress hormones, improves blood sugar control, and enhances recovery. Without sleep, even the best diet and exercise plan struggles to work. When sleep improves, fat loss often accelerates without any other change. As these habits settle in, changes begin to appear in subtle but meaningful ways. One of the first signs is how the belly feels. Visceral fat creates pressure from the inside, making the abdomen feel firm and tense. As it decreases, the belly often feels softer and less bloated even before major size changes occur. Waist measurements begin to drop gradually, sometimes without dramatic weight loss on the scale. Energy levels become more stable. The afternoon crashes fade. Morning fatigue lessens. This happens because blood sugar swings are reduced and cells become better at using fuel. Cravings, especially for sugar and refined foods, start to weaken. This is not due to discipline, but because the hormonal signals driving those cravings calm down. When insulin and cortisol stabilize, the constant urge to snack loses its grip. Blood sugar becomes more predictable. Fewer spikes and crashes mean the body feels balanced instead of reactive. These changes are internal, but they shape how the body looks and feels over time. Avoiding certain behaviors during these 30 days is just as important as building new habits. Late night eating disrupts the natural rhythm of insulin and growth hormones. At night, the body is meant to repair, not digest large meals. Eating late keeps insulin high and interferes with fat-burning processes that occur during sleep. Sugary drinks are another major obstacle. Liquid sugar enters the bloodstream quickly and triggers sharp insulin spikes without creating fullness. This directly feeds visceral fat storage. Chronic calorie cutting creates a different problem. When the body senses ongoing restriction, it adapts by slowing metabolism and protecting fat stores. Muscle loss increases, hormones shift, and progress stalls. Overtraining adds unnecessary stress. Excessive exercise without recovery raises cortisol and can backfire, especially when combined with low-calorie intake. Constant stress, whether mental or emotional, reinforces the survival signals that keep visceral fat in place. Managing stress does not mean eliminating challenges. It means preventing stress from becoming constant and unrelenting. 30 days matters because visceral fat responds faster than surface fat once the right signals are present. This fat is metabolically active and closely tied to hormonal changes. When insulin sensitivity improves and cortisol decreases, visceral fat becomes accessible quickly. Hormonal shifts do not take years. They begin within days and compound over weeks. As the body experiences consistent signals of safety and energy balance, momentum builds. Habits feel easier. Results reinforce behavior. Confidence grows. The first month creates a foundation where the body no longer fights against fat loss. Instead, it begins cooperating. Visceral fat is not stubborn by nature. It is guarded for a reason. Change the signals, and the guard steps aside. When the body no longer feels threatened, the fat it once protected becomes unnecessary, and the release follows naturally. Visceral fat does not disappear through force, guilt, or extreme effort. It fades when the body receives the right signals consistently. Once those signals are in place, the process becomes steady and predictable, not stressful or confusing. What you have learned here is not a temporary fix, but a new way of understanding how your body responds to food, movement, rest, and stress. The real power comes from applying these ideas daily, even in small ways, and allowing biology to do the work it was designed to do. If this video helped you see fat loss differently, take a moment to support the channel by liking the video and sharing it with someone who needs this information. It helps this message reach more people who are struggling silently. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next, because in the next video we will break down exactly what to eat to keep visceral fat off forever and protect your health long term. Stay consistent, stay curious, and stay with us.